Hello comparison test viewers, and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. I'm standing here with the brand new 2020 Ford Explorer. This year there are a lot of fresh competitors to the three-row SUV segment, and I've already done a comparison test between the 2020 Telluride and 2019 Pilot and Highlander. If you'd like to see that video first, check out the card in the upper right hand corner of the video. Spoiler alert, the Telluride won that comparison, so now it's time to go against fresher competitors in the form of the brand new Explorer and brand new Palisade. This is the 2020 Kia Telluride. Some of you may recognize it from when it took the cake against the 2019 Toyota Highlander and 2019 Honda Pilot. Well, it's back for more, but this time it's facing three brand new competitors. This is the 2020 Hyundai Palisade, and it's direct cousins with the 2020 Kia Telluride, so I have really high hopes for this vehicle. It is also brand new for the 2020 model year, and it's also Hyundai's first legitimate venture into the three-row SUV segment. But before we get into it, we have to look at one more competitor, and that's the 2020 Subaru Ascent. The Ascent is Subaru's first real venture into the three-row SUV segment as well, and even though it's a year old, its sales numbers have been very strong, so it's worth comparing to these three brand new competitors. I assigned points on a scale from 1 to 10 in 7 different categories to evaluate these SUVs for a possible total of 70 points at the end of the video. Furthermore, I'm comparing these vehicles at the $40,000 price point. However, the Ford and Hyundai jump from the mid $30,000 range to the mid $40,000 range, so we're working with what's available. That said, I'm comparing specific trims of each vehicle, namely the Ascent Touring, the Explorer Limited, the Palisade Limited, and the Telluride SX. I will not be adding any options or packages to any of those 4 trims to make the comparison as fair as possible. With that said, let's delve right into the brand new Ford Explorer. The 2020 Ford Explorer Limited can be driven off the lot for $48,130, which is the most expensive vehicle in the test. Let's see if it offers a comparably increased number of features for that money. The lights on the Explorer are LED all around with automatic high beams and fog lights. Besides chrome trim pieces like dual exhaust tips and bumper inserts, the exterior of the vehicle also has big 20-inch aluminum wheels and roof rails. Ford was the innovator of the technology where swiping a foot under the rear bumper opens the rear hatch on SUVs, so naturally this nearly $50,000 vehicle has it as well. Finally, the front of the vehicle has power folding mirrors and rain sensing wipers. Moving on to the interior of the car, the Ford has tri-zone climate control and an air filtration system for cabin inhabitants. The rearview mirror dims by itself when bright light is shined on it from behind, and the Ford has an intelligent key with push-button start, which just allows the driver to enter and start the car without ever removing the key from their pocket. The Explorer also has My Key, which allows each key fob to be configured differently than others so parents retain control over teen drivers. Speaking of the key, the Explorer can also be started as you're walking up to it with remote start. A feature that is often overlooked but is actually far and few between on vehicles this expensive is a power tilt and telescoping steering column, and the Ford has it. The rearview camera has its own washer, and the interior has 3 12-volt power outlets, one in the front row, one in the middle, and one in the cargo hold. Before we move on to the seats and infotainment systems, there is a universal garage door opener in this car, as well as the capability to start and lock or unlock the Ford from an app, and lots of people appreciate that. The seats are all leather with micro perforation and contrasting stitching. The front 2 rows of seats are heated, and the second row of seats are captain's chairs like in the front. The third row is power folding for easy access to additional trunk space. The audio system is a great 980-watt Bang & Olufsen unit, and there is a navigation system that supports voice-activated controls. The navigation and infotainment system run through an 8-inch unit in the center console, where you can access Sirius XM and the 4G LTE hotspot for passengers. Next, let's look at the 2020 Hyundai Palisade Limited, which starts at $44,700. Exterior features on this SUV include 20-inch wheels like the Ford, and also like that vehicle, all exterior and interior lights are LED. The exterior mirrors are heated, the windshield wipers sense rain, there are roof rails, and the Palisade has a dual-panel sunroof. The suspension in the Hyundai auto levels, and the rear hatch is hands-free with an auto-open feature. Entering the Hyundai is similar to the other vehicles with its smart key and push-button start, and it even comes with trailer pre-wiring out back. On the interior, premium Napa leather abounds, and the seats in the front are powered 8 different ways with an additional 4 ways lumbar adjustment for the driver. That seat also has a seat extension cushion, as well as a memory function for different drivers. The front and rear seats are heated and ventilated, and the second row has captain's chairs instead of bench seating, which are power foldable. The third row folds 60/40, but is also power folding for ease of access. The Hyundai is further loaded with HD radio on its 10.25-inch screen on the dash that houses the nav unit. Both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are standard features on the 2020 Palisade, and there's an intercom that carries the front passengers' voices to the rear seats. The 630-watt Harman Kardon audio system doesn't quite match the sheer force of the Fords, but is fantastic nonetheless. In all rows of seating, the Palisade has USB ports sprinkled throughout for passengers to charge, but the limited trim also adds a wireless charging pad for those with phones capable of doing so. More advanced technology in the Hyundai includes a head-up display that is projected onto the bottom of the windshield so the driver doesn't have to take their eyes off the road, and a surround view monitor that gives the driver a bird's-eye view of the Palisade's surroundings when backing or parking. The rearview mirror has auto link and, like the Ford, dims when provoked by harsh lights. Speaking of lights, the interior lighting comes in 64 different colors. The steering wheel provides haptic feedback in all Palisade trims and is heated in the limited trim. The top-of-the-line Hyundai also gets a beautiful 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster. Hyundai Blue Link tracks vehicle performance and allows drivers to start, warm, and lock their Palisade from an app on their smartphone or tablet for 3 years. The final straggler features that are almost a given at this price are Bluetooth and a proximity key with push-button start. The Kia Telluride SX is mechanically nearly identical to the Palisade, as they are corporate cousins. Either way, I'm still going to pick apart any differences. The first is the trim levels and pricing. The Kia is the least expensive in the test by over $3,000 right off the bat, but the SX is the top of the line trim. This is interesting because the Hyundai hits $44,000 no problem. The Telluride SX starts at only $41,490. For that price, the exterior of the car is fitted with heated, power folding mirrors, rain sensing wipers, LED headlights, daytime running lights, and fog lights, chrome dual exhaust tips, and 20-inch rims on 245 series tires. Two more technologies that need a slightly more in-depth explanation are high beam assist and a smart liftgate. The high beam assist reads oncoming lanes for traffic and switches the high beams off when it detects another car, so the driver doesn't have to do it manually. The smart liftgate will open if you stand behind the Telluride's rear hatch with the key in your pocket. Naturally, it's powered. Let's move on to the interior, where the main feature is the Telluride's dual sunroofs that the Palisade also gets. In addition, the interior also gets the 10.25-inch touchscreen that supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as Kia's UVO infotainment system. The Koreans must have a contract with Harman Kardon, as the audio system is similar to the Palisades but comes with 2 less speakers. The Telluride SX also has wireless phone charging, Bluetooth, a smart key with push-button start, wood grain and stainless steel accents on the interior, the same 64 interior lighting colors, and the auto-dimming rearview mirror. The seats and steering wheel are leather, and both the captain's chairs and second row are heated and ventilated. Speaking of seating, the driver's seat is 12-way power adjustable, and the passenger has 8 ways of power adjustability as well. The Kia also has the head-up display, but forgoes the large digital gauge cluster for a more conventional 7-inch TFT display. Finally, the nifty PA system made it out of the corporate parts bin and into the Kia, as did the bird's-eye view parking camera. Finally, let's take a look at the standard features on the 2020 Subaru Ascent. The touring trim starts at $45,045. Exterior features very nearly match the competitors, with 20-inch wheels, LED steering responsive headlights and fog lights, a windshield wiper de-icer, and heated power folding mirrors. On the top of the Ascent are roof rails and a powered panoramic sunroof. Let's move on to the interior, where the seats are leather and the front 2 rows are heated and ventilated. The steering wheel is leather and heated, like the other vehicles, and the driver's seat is 10-way power adjustable, with 4-way lumbar support and a 2-position memory function for the driver. The rear seats fold 60-40, but the middle row is captain's chairs, like most other vehicles in this test. Ivory, leather accent trim, and wood grain add to the luxurious feel of the interior of the Ascent. Keyless access with push-button start makes it into the Ascent, as does a power liftgate and an auto-dimming rearview mirror that also displays the rearview camera in the mirror when backing. Passengers will appreciate the 4G LTE hotspot, as well as the 2 USB ports per row in the Ascent and a single 120-volt power outlet. The second row has its own climate controls, and the Ascent also comes with a Harman Kardon audio unit, this time with 792 watts and 14 speakers. The biggest screen size for the multimedia is 8 inches, but it does have navigation like the other vehicles in this test. Subaru's Starlink software allows Bluetooth, HD radio, Sirius XM, Apple CarPlay, and Android Auto to be standard on the touring trim of the Ascent. Now let's assign some points to the 4 vehicles in terms of what they bring to the table as a value proposition. Remember that the Ford started at just over $48,000. It had powered rear seats and a steering column, which some of the others don't have, but it was the only vehicle here without some form of sunroof. It did have the best audio system, but was tied for the smallest center screen in the test at 8 inches. Overall, the Ford was $3,085 more than the next expensive Subaru, and I don't think I could justify that money on an equivalent number of features, so the Ford will receive a 6.8 out of 10 for its value. The 2020 Palisade was just over $44,000, and it matched nearly every feature the Ford had, plus it added the main ones it was missing, all for a smaller price. More importantly, though, the Palisade was still $3,210 more expensive than the Kia, which was only missing the auto-leveling suspension, fully digital gauge cluster, and some other miscellaneous features. The Kia still had a good audio system that it mostly shared with the Palisade, and the head-up display made it into both Koreans. I think in this company, the underdog Kia actually provides the best value proposition, so we'll give it a 9.6 out of 10 and the Hyundai an 8.5. The Ascent comes in third in value as it offers similar features to the Ford and Kia, but for a middling price. I'll give it a 7.5. Most of these vehicles aren't rated by the IIHS yet except for the Ascent, and that vehicle got a top safety pick plus rating from the organization. Because I can't compare apples to apples though, we will instead be looking at the active safety features of each SUV. The Explorer has the obligatory forward sensing system that beeps at low speeds when it's approaching a solid object. The Ford also has lane keeping assist with lane departure alert and Ford Co-Pilot 360 Plus. The bundled features in this package that are standard on the limited trim are automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection and blind spot information with cross traffic alert. It's worth noting that the 2019 Explorer did rather poorly in crash test results, so hopefully Ford remedied that in this new model. The 2020 Palisade has blind spot collision avoidance assist, rear cross traffic assist, the parking distance warnings that the Ford has, forward collision avoidance with pedestrian detection, lane keeping assist, a driver attention warning, safe exit assist, and highway drive assist, which is essentially near autonomous driving on the highway. Furthermore, the Hyundai has ultrasonic sensors in the rear seat to detect movement to try and stop the driver from accidentally leaving children in the back seat. However, being a functioning parent would render these sensors useless. In comparison, the Kia has identical features, save for the gimmicky rear seat feature we just talked about. Subaru as a brand has made it its personal goal to be one of the safest cars to purchase, and I think the Ascent carries the torch well. Standard are adaptive cruise control, pre-collision braking, lane departure and sway warning, lane keep assist, blind spot detection with lane change assist and rear cross traffic alert, and high beam assist. In terms of points, the Ford was the only SUV without a self-driving feature, which is really the only difference in any of these cars at this price range. I'll give the Explorer an 8, the Hyundai an 8.9, the Kia an 8.8, and the Subaru an 8.9. I get this statistic from Consumer Reports, which extensively tests every vehicle they purchase to determine a predicted reliability score. The 2019 Explorer was rated as average, as is almost all of Ford's lineup, so don't expect anything different for the 2020 Explorer. The Palisade is again not yet rated because it is a new model, but Hyundai reliability has historically been rated as average, especially for their bigger vehicles. Same goes for the Kia, as other cars in their lineup with identical powertrains are rated as such. The Ascent is old enough to receive a rating from Consumer Reports, and it too gets average from the organization. 7's all around for average reliability. The Explorer comes with a 2.3-liter EcoBoost inline 4-cylinder that's turbocharged to 300 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. This is routed through a new, for the Explorer, 10-speed automatic transmission to the rear wheels, which is good for an estimated 7.2-second 0-60 run. The Palisade comes with a more traditional 3.8-liter V6, making 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Further differentiating itself from the Ford, the Palisade starts with front-wheel drive and has an 8-speed automatic standard. Because of the power deficit and front-wheel drive, the Hyundai is slightly slower than the Ford at 7.4 seconds. Ironically, the Kia beats the Palisade in the 0-60, matching the Ford, even though both the Kia and Hyundai have identical powertrains. This might be due to a weight difference from the added electronics in the Hyundai. The Subaru is the only vehicle here with all-wheel drive standard, and it too has a downsized 2.4-liter 4-cylinder, more like the Ford. It's also turbocharged, but musters only 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque, and puts power to the ground through a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. CVTs are used primarily to gain an advantage in fuel economy, but car enthusiasts typically don't like them. However, the average 3-row SUV buyer may not notice a difference. Even still, the Ascent remains mid-pack with a time of 7.3 seconds. In this category, the Explorer gets a 9 for having the most modern powertrain, the Kia and Hyundai twins get an 8.3 for having a gutsy V6, and the Subaru gets a 9 for having a modern powertrain and all-wheel drive, but it gets possible points taken away for sticking with a CVT. The Explorer gets 21 miles per gallon in the city and 28 on the highway, the Hyundai gets 19 and 26, and the Kia and Subaru get 20 and 26, respectively. Credit the Explorer's fuel economy win to the transmission, which has 10 forward gears for highway cruising that maximize fuel economy, 9.5 for the Ford, 8.3 for the Subaru and Kia, and 8.1 for the Hyundai. The new Explorer is more evolution than revolution when it comes to design. The 2019 Explorer looks blockier and less sleek than the new one, and it hasn't ever been unattractive. The rising beltline gives the Explorer a low and cut look, more like a shooting brake design, and it gives off sportiness. Unfortunately, high beltlines also make the interior feel like a cave, and visibility is not so great. I think Ford has a good opportunity to capitalize and take their design language in a new direction with this 2020 model, but they played it safe this time around, and that isn't always the worst idea. The 2020 Palisade can't be mistaken for anything but a Hyundai, which is mostly a compliment. I'm still on the fence about the front of the car, and I think these split headlights that are becoming more common in the industry don't look good, a la Pontiac Aztek. In person, the lights seem to have themselves figured out, but it doesn't carry over well on camera. However, the rear of the vehicle is smooth, extremely attractive, and it gives off a more luxurious feel than the Explorer. Body cladding and big wheels make the Palisade seem like a true SUV, and the ride height seems higher than the Explorer, even though it may not be. The Telluride is great looking from every single exterior angle, and I like Kia's orange accent lights. The Telly looks much better in certain colors than others, however, and I would avoid white with silver wheels. The Ascent is the least visually progressive of the group, which again can be a safe choice. It looks like a lifted Outback, which isn't a bad-looking car, but it's also indistinguishable in traffic. The body lines are controlled, and Subaru took no risks with the Ascent, which made sense at least in its first generation. Subaru knows its demographic will care more about substance than styling anyways, at least versus buyers of other brands. On the interiors, the Ford has an uncluttered center stack and center console area. The steering wheel seems nice, but maybe a tad out of place. I'm glad Ford ditched the boxy look of SUVs of yore in the interior. The Palisade is a cookie-cutter premium SUV interior, which at least doesn't mean it's bad, but nothing strikes me as a revolutionary design. The Telluride seems to mimic more contemporary German styling, read BMW, and I think it pays off generally as it conveys an upscale feel even in the architecture of the dashboard. The Ascent is sort of busy and looks like it came straight from 2015. Subaru needs help on their interior styling. Functionality is fine, but the styling is a half decade behind the others, even though the Ascent is only a year old. 8.5 for the Explorer, 8.9 for the Palisade, 10 for the Kia, and 7 for the Subaru, which is mostly dragged down by the interior and not the exterior. This category is meant to evaluate how family-friendly the SUVs are and wrap up any loose ends or special features that can be compared. Let's start with cargo capacity and passenger volume. Three vehicles hover around 150 to 155 cubic feet of space for passengers to enjoy, while the Kia somehow squeezes out 178 cubic feet. With the third row of seats folded, the SUVs are all at about 45 cubic feet of storage space, with the Ford having the most at 47.9 and the Hyundai bringing up the rear at 45.8. With all seats folded, the difference between the SUVs is negligible, with all of them being within a foot of each other from 86 to 87 cubes. All four SUVs made it easy to get into and out of the back seat, especially the Ford and Hyundai, which have power folding seats. The power folding, while convenient, might test the patience of back seat occupants, who more likely than not have the attention span of a goldfish. The Subaru was the only of the three where my headroom was compromised in the rear, and anyone over 5'5" couldn't sit in the third row even for short trips. All three other vehicles had enough room for my head. The Explorer had USB as well as USB-C ports, which I thought was a nice touch, and all three vehicles had USBs and cup holders in different rows of seating. The Ford can tow 5,300 pounds total. The Palisade, Ascent, and Telluride max out at 5,000. The Palisade gets an 8.5 for usability, the Explorer gets a 9.2 for towing and USB ports, the Ascent gets an 8 for being the most family-friendly on the inside but having the smallest back seat, and the Telluride gets an 8.8 for the extra passenger space. Here are the final points tallied up for each SUV. The Kia wins again, aided fully in part by its styling and value proposition. There are more luxurious SUVs in this test, ones that might be better for a young family, even ones that are better in the winter. But were it my money, I would run out to my nearest Kia dealership and pick up a 2020 Telluride. Word on the street is that dealers can barely keep up with demand, and now you know why.